Okay, so you say you want to track some kittens into the palm of your hand. Well, this tutorial is going to show you how to do just that. So the first thing we want to do is grab our phone or a camera and record yourself holding a small piece of paper with an X or a dot drawn on it. Now, what we're going for here is contrast, something that will be easy to attach a tracker to, so that we can easily track our green screen element to our hand. Now, you could also do a goat if you wanted to. Just know that if you have empty space, the tracker might be visible, and so that might not be something you want. So in this case, we'll stick with the kittens, and we'll go ahead and they should cover up that track mark. So now that we've got the video shot and dragged it into the new comp icon, we can go ahead and add in our green screen footage. And in this case, this is a clip that I downloaded from YouTube. Just Googled free green screen footage and found this little clip. So now that I have this green screen clip loaded into my comp, I'm going to go ahead and right click on it. And I'm going to go to Effects, Keying, Keylight 1.2. This is the main keying suite for After Effects, and it works pretty well, so I'll show you how to use it right now. Now, by default, it's going to start out on the final result. We'll go through and probably take a look at the screen mat and maybe even check out the intermediate result. The main difference between intermediate and final is that final adds a little bit of contrast and some saturation to your key to try to clean it up. If you don't want that, just use intermediate result. But screen mat will actually show us the mat that we're about to create. So I'll show you that right now. Before we go ahead and do anything, we want to grab our screen color eyedropper, click on it, and come over here and click in the green. And there you go. You can see it's keyed out our cats. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the black background so we can see what's going on here. Now, it's not a perfect key by any means. We've definitely got some shadow going on here. But let's go ahead and take a look now at the screen mat. Now, the screen mat is essentially a black and white version of your shot, and anything black is alpha channel, meaning that it is see-through, and anything that's white is opaque and will be retained. Now, we want ideally to have solid white through here. So let's go ahead and make a couple adjustments to see if we can achieve that. The main things that I adjust when I'm working in Keylight are in the screen mat folder. You'll notice the first two are clip white and clip black. If I start to adjust these, you'll notice that there we go. By bringing up the clip black to about 38, I notice that I lose a lot of that sort of area around the cats. And now I need to try to thicken up the white mat, so I'll adjust the clip white. And that looks pretty good right about there. You generally want to keep a distance of about 40 between these two numbers in order to get a good key. Now, if I go back and I look at the final result, I can see here, okay, that's looking pretty good. A little bit of a blur around the edges. And again, at the end of the day, this is going to be pretty small. But if I wanted to try to clean up these edges a little bit more, the two tools that I would use would be Screen Shrink Grow and Screen Softness. So Screen Shrink Grow is essentially going to just remove a couple pixels from the edge of my image. So if I shrink it back to 1 or maybe 1.5, that's just going to contract the mat around my subject a little bit. And then if I want to soften that edge, I can add a little bit of softness. Now for both of these, I rarely go above like 2. Usually one or 2 pixels does the trick for both of these. Now I went negative in the Screen Shrink Grow because I wanted to contract the screen, or the mat. And so if we take one last look at our screen mat, we can see that it looks pretty clean. Again, I'm not too worried about this little area for this. All right, now that we've got our cats keyed out, we can go back to final result and we can turn on our background. Now, if you want to go ahead and scale the cats down now, go ahead and select the top layer, hit the S key, wait for your spinning ball to stop spinning. Let's try that one more time. There we go. And we can start to shrink these guys down a little bit and even just grab them and move them into the ballpark area so that then we can kind of get a better idea of how big we want them. Now, I purposely kind of tilted my hand back just a little bit to kind of put the edge of my palm up a bit. And my plan was to kind of mask the cats just slightly so it looked like they're sitting literally in the palm of my hand. To me, this is a little, if you put them right there, it's pretty obvious that they're in front of your hand. So the idea of having just a little bit of your hand overlapping the cats is going to make the believability of this animation a whole lot better. But first, we don't need to do that yet. First thing we need to do is get a track on this tracking marker right here. So let's go ahead and do that now. So in order to track the cats to my hand, I am going to select the layer with the video of me. In fact, let's go ahead and take a second and just title these. We'll call this me, and we'll call this cats. Okay, so I'm going to right click on the clip of me, and I'm going to go to track and stabilize. And I'm going to choose track motion here. We're doing a 2D track. We're not tracking the camera, we're just tracking the motion of that X. So we'll click that button, and that's going to take us to our tracker window. And basically what we want to do here is kind of click on the inside of this box right here. This is our tracker, and drag it down to our X. At this point, you might want to hit Command plus and zoom in a little bit. And basically what we want to do is we want to try to fill this inside box with the X. I'm going to try to scoot it up a little bit to get my hand out of there and just leave it over that X. Put the little plus sign right there as well. Now this outer box is a range box that basically is there so that if it does slip off the tracker, this box kind of tells After Effects where to look. I'm not too worried about this slipping off the tracker. When you have a high contrast track point, it tends to work pretty well. So with our tracker set up, let's now go over to the tracker window. I'm going to go ahead and just see if I can peel this off here. And we'll drag it up to the center. Okay, so when you only have two layers, this pretty much sets itself up by itself. What I mean by that is the motion source is me, the clip of me. The current track is tracker number 1. The track type, we're going to do a transform track. We're not looking to do a power pin or a stabilize. And in this case, I'm just going to go for position. I don't really rotate my hand and the scale doesn't change. So at this point, I could go to edit targets, and that just basically means what am I going to apply this tracking information to. And it's going to default to the cats layer, so I don't need to really do anything. And then finally, I can just go down to Analyze. Put your playhead at the beginning of your video. Although if you don't, you can analyze forward or backwards. And I'm just going to hit the forward button. And while this is happening, I'm just going to keep my eye on the tracker and make sure it doesn't slip off. All right, we got a great track right there. If you watch it back, you can see that that tracker is really well stuck the entire time. And if you're happy with it, you can then click the apply button. And we'll click X and Y, okay. And there we go, we are done tracking. And now our cats are there. If we play back the video, you'll see that, okay, we're getting there. But obviously they're not where we want them. And this is where we can take advantage of the anchor point setting inside the cat layer. If we open up the cat layer and I hit P for position, make sure it's on the right layer, there we go. You'll see that all of that information is taken up by our tracking information. So if I want to reposition these cats, I can't use position to do that. And that's why After Effects gives us anchor point. If I go to anchor point, I can kind of use that as a secondary position control. And without messing up the track, I can now get the cats right where I want them. So I'll move this up a little bit using the X control, maybe move it to the right just a touch. All right, and then I'm going to bring it back down and try to get a believable position. Now, at this point, you might want to hit the T key and turn down the opacity of your subject just a little bit so you can kind of see what's underneath it. On top of that, all this digital information, the tracking information, is kind of getting in the way of seeing what I'm doing. So I'm going to turn that off for a minute by hitting Command H. Nope, excuse me, not Command H. I'm going to do that by hitting Shift Command H, assuming that I can get back into After Effects here. There we go. Shift Command H. There we go. That removes your overlays. And now I can come in here. I just zoomed in by hitting Command plus, and now I'm going to press on the space bar to move the screen. All right, now I can see my cats and I can kind of get a better idea of what's going on here. So what I want to do is, let's bring them back in a little bit. I'm going to bring them down just a touch more. So I'll hit the A key. There we go, right about there. Maybe over to the side just a bit. That looks pretty good, I think. Okay, so once I've done this, then I want to basically draw a mask on the cat's layer to kind of reveal a little bit more of my hand. And we'll go ahead and do that now. Make sure your layer is selected. Go up and grab the pen tool. And I'm just going to try to create one nice clean arc that goes across my palm and maybe comes around right there. And at that point, now at this point it's doing the wrong thing, so we're going to hit the M key and we're going to switch our mask from add to subtract. And there we go. Now we can go ahead and hit the T key and bring our opacity back. And we can take a look at what we've got. All right, not too bad. Let's go ahead and shrink it down a little bit. Take a look at it. Hit the play button. Now, screen clip does have audio for some reason. We can just turn that off. All right, overall, that looks pretty good. The question at this point is, do I want to feather that mask at all? And the answer is maybe a pixel or two, but probably not a whole lot. This edge is actually looking somewhat believable right here. And so we can select the cat layer, hit the M key. If we hit it a couple times, it opens up all of the controls for our mask. And I could go back and feather it just a little bit just to try to blend those two images together. That looks nice, looks a little soft. And overall, that looks pretty good. It's tracked well, it's not moving anywhere. And so, at that point, we're kind of successful. If that's where you want to leave it, you can. But there's a few things that I usually do to try to make my composites a little bit more believable. And that is taking a look at my black level, my overall saturation, my color, and my grain. So if you're interested, I'll show you how to do those things right now, really quickly, not very difficult. Essentially, we click on the cats, and we're going to go up to Effects, Noise and Grain, which is right here. Now, if I go to Effects, Noise and Grain, and I choose Match Grain, that's going to give me the option to basically match the pixels of this video to the pixels of this video. Now, it's probably fair to say that the cat video is a little bit more beat up because it's been compressed by YouTube, and so there will be some differences in the pixelation between that and my iPhone footage. So with this selected, let's go ahead and go to Match Grain. The viewing mode right now, we'll set it to Final Output so we see the final results. Under Noise Source, we're going to choose the Me layer. Okay, and at this point you're not going to see a huge difference, but basically what it's doing is it's analyzing the grain of my clip and applying it to the cats. Now what I tend to do to make this a little better is I choose Compensate for Existing Grain and I crank that up just a little bit, and it seems to get better results that way. Again, it's a tough thing to notice because it's very small, but trust me when I say that this process will make your composites more believable. Matching your grain is a good idea. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just sort of eyeball the black levels. by default, they're not too far off at the moment. I'm looking at kind of like the darkest darks on the video of me, maybe in this right up in there. And then I'm looking at the black values for my cats. And if I had to guess, I would say the cats look a little bit darker. So to fix that, I'm going to select the cat layer. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to Effects, Color Correction, Lumetri Color. Okay. And that'll give me a whole bunch of tools that I can use on these cats here. If I want to go to basic correction and take my black level and maybe just raise it up just a bit, it's going to take a little bit of the punch out of the blacks in my cat layer, which I think in the end will match better with what's going on in this image. On top of that, if one is sharper than the other, I could go to Creative and I could add some sharpness to my cats, although in this case I don't think they need it. I could also unsharpen them a little bit if I feel like they're too sharp. So that's a good idea. In this case, I could drop it down about 10. But there's not a huge difference in sharpness between these two videos. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then we got our black levels, we got our grain, we've got our cats tracked. The one thing that I like to do to really bind together the kind of the color information of my composite and my footage is to apply some sort of photo filter. Now in Lumetri, we could apply a look. Now in this case, we don't want to do it here because it'll only apply it to the cats. If we wanted to apply a color look to both of these clips, we could go up to File, we could go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. Now an adjustment layer is just an empty layer that sits on top of my other layers. And anything I apply to my adjustment layer will be applied to both the layers underneath it. So we'll go ahead and right click. We'll go to Effects, Color Correction. And again, in this point, a photo filter would help. Or you could go to Lumetri and use one of the looks in the Creative dropdown. Let's go ahead and do that. So if we bring up Lumetri, and we go down to Creative, you will see that under Looks, there are a bunch of preset looks. These are essentially like filters to give your video a specific look. And most of them by default are way too strong. Let's pick something like Kodak, try to give it a little film look. Now that's kind of increasing the contrast, pushing up the whites a little bit. It's not too bad. If you want to, you can go to Intensity, and you can take down the intensity a little bit. Not a bad idea. But that does a nice job of kind of getting us similar black levels between both of our clips. And since we did that, let's go ahead and add a photo filter on top of that. Photo filter is just a colored layer that applies to both anything that is underneath the adjustment layer. And so if I right click and go to Effects, Color Correction, and Photo Filter, you'll see that I just added a warming filter that's adding just a little bit of orange to both of these. Again, we could take that down, or we could change it to a cooling filter, which is going to give it a little blue look, or literally whatever color you're interested in. I'm going to stick with the warming filter, and at that point, if we play this back, it's probably going to look all right. As you can see, After Effects is being After Effects. There we go. All right, so the last thing we'll do here is let's do a little push in on the cats. Now, basically what I want to do is just use a little scale effect and scale up the video so that our cats are a little bit more prominent in the video. And the easiest way to do that, since we have these adjustment layers and multiple layers, is to select all of our layers, right click, and choose Pre-Compose. And what that'll do is group all of those layers together. I'm going to choose Move All Attributes to New Composition. But what that does is it groups all those layers together. So now we can go down to Scale, and we'll drop a little scale keyframe right at the beginning. We'll go all the way to the end. And we're going to scale up just a little bit. All right, and now I'm going to go add a position animation as well. So I'll go back to the beginning, I'll hit the P key, drop a keyframe, and then go to the end, and I'm just going to nudge it towards the cats to really try to draw them into the attention. So if we back it up, now we've grouped everything together. We've added a position keyframe and a scale keyframe, and now we are rendering, but also slowly zooming in on those cats. And there we go. Easy peasy, lots of fun. Again, you can do this with all sorts of green screen elements. There is a ton available on YouTube. And that'll do it. Hope you enjoyed it.